I want to unpack splenic authority a little bit because it is an authority that can sometimes get us bungled up. The spleen center has two ways of communicating. And this is true, by the way, whether you have it defined or open. So if you have it defined, it's going to be consistent for you. So your connection to your splenic authority will be consistent. If you have an open spleen, obviously it's not going to be your authority. But if you have an open spleen, the consistency of receiving the impulses and the signals of the spleen can be a little bit varied, which can make it difficult to learn how to really connect to the wisdom of your spleen. You can and you will if you keep practicing over time, but it's definitely not the same as having the defined spleen. So the spleen center itself gives two signals. The first signal is an intuitive flash or an intuitive hunch. It's not quite a gut level feeling. If you're a generator type, your sacral is going to feel more like a gut feeling. But it's if you have an open sacral, if you're not a generator type, if you're a manifester or a projector or a reflector, your splenic insights or your splenic gut level feeling you can classify that as a gut level feeling. It's just a hunch or a sense or a feeling or a knowingness. And that is the first way that it'll communicate. The splenic impulse, when it gives you that intuitive sense of, oh, I should go here, or I should not go here, or I should take this vitamin, or I shouldn't talk to this person, or I should answer this call. That splenic pulse is a one-time signal. It's hard to call it back and figure out, wait, what just happened? And so certainly one of the things that requires practice to a certain degree. You have to kind of practice sensing and feeling that spleen. And oftentimes what that really means is um, getting connected to that intuitive part of yourself, your splenic impulse, really is part of deconditioning some of the chaos and the clutter in your life. It's about meditating. It's about making sure that you have spaces in your day that are quiet and creative. It's about not over mediating, like don't be constantly plugged into Zoom, said the woman who's been here since like 5 o'clock this morning. You know, um, it's about really being present and not having so much distraction going on, so you tune in your intuition. And there are lots of things we could talk about in terms of intuitive development, but anything you may have ever heard or seen or learned about intuitive development is really about learning to tune into your spleen. It's not just about that, but learning, clearing your field and getting yourself focused and having moments of stillness, being creative and not over mediating, and all those things can help you really connect more to that wisdom and that splenic authority, that splenic pulse. The second message that the spleen communicates with, or the second signal that it sends, is fear. The role of the spleen is to keep you safe and alive and healthy. That's one of the many other goals of the splenic center. And the fear of the spleen is protective. And when it's functioning healthy, when you're deconditioned, that fear center, when it gives you a signal of fear, it's an intuitive thing that you need to pay attention to. It's a signal that says, hey, you're about to go do something that isn't necessarily going to sustain you in the long run. It's not healthy for you, right? And so that fear is an important signal. And again, much like the intuitive messages that the spleen sends, it's usually of a message that comes, triggers a fight or flight, but then it's supposed to dissipate. We're not supposed to be hanging in fear. We're not supposed to be living in a low grade fight or flight response. In the human story, especially as it is right now, because we're a little bit more complex than just instinctual beings, I'm going to say that I'm not going to completely say that my dogs don't have other existential fears. One of them in particular has a lot of existential fears, but he was also very abused before we rescued him. So he has a lot of fear about a lot of things, like he doesn't like to walk through doorways. So I'm not saying the animals don't have instincts. Don't have existential issues, but as human beings, we excel in existential fears. Like we're really good at existential fears. That's like one of the things we can be like really proud of as a species, right? And so, especially as we're more evolved now, we can be really afraid of doing things like getting on Facebook and doing a Facebook Live. We think we're going to die if we do it, right? Or we get really afraid of things like making a commitment to someone, or we get really afraid of going and doing something brand new that isn't necessarily life threatening, but is existentially threatening, that threatens our sense of value, our sense of worth, or our lovability, or is something that maybe is going to be embarrassing. Um, so, it gets very complicated with that splenic center. And really, I want to get you all into the habit of really assessing when you do experience fear to really stop for a second and ask yourself, is my spleen telling me that I'm in danger, that I'm about to make some kind of a decision that's going to put me at risk, that's not safe? Or is my spleen triggering an unconscious fear that has everything to do with my self worth and my lovability? And those are really big, important things to distinguish and to recognize that the signal of the spleen, especially the fear part, if it hangs on, the only way through it is through it. The only way through it is through it. If it's an existential fear, you have to go do that thing you're afraid of, or the fear part will never go away. And you'll be living in a constant state of low grade fight or flight until you go through it, because that splenic response is designed to be in the moment, and then it's designed to dissipate. So if we go back and you think about, if you're being chased by a bear, right? And your spleen gives you that fear signal, which it will, hopefully. It's designed for you to act on it in the moment, right? You're not going to continue to stay afraid of the bear, to stay in that heightened state of run and fight or flight, right? After the bear is gone. Once the bear is gone and handled, all of that de-escalates. You may have trauma from being chased by the bear, but that's a whole nother thing, right? But you're not supposed to be sitting in that fear forever. Again, learning to dial into what is your spleen telling you will help you learn to assess those signals, and ultimately will get you better dialed in over time to, oh, I just got that gut level feeling. You may not be able to recall it, but you'll have a better sense of how to trust it and how to know it.